We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And by our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and check them out at www.crowdplayapp.com for details. Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Cage My IQ. This is another bonus edition where we will preview UFC Fight Night, Gane versus Rozenstruik. How are you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing good, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to preview this fight card. It has a lot of intriguing fights on it. And then before we get into that, I just want to review last week where I went a nice 4-2 on the week. After starting the main card 1-2, I went 3-0 in the last three fights to save the week for me. And then for the 3-week span that I've been recording my picks, I am 11-6. How about you?
I think I went 4-2 last week as well. So we're right around the same mark for the last 2 weeks. I know I'm never going to bet against Derek Lewis again. That was a bad choice.
Yeah, that was a mean uppercut, but what he said was true. He was just going to, his game plan was he was going to wait for his opportunity to get him with the uppercut, and that's what he did. Yeah. I think there's some sort of game plan now / blueprint on Curtis Blades now, where because with how he goes, it's either he does the stand-up game or he does his takedown game. He doesn't really know how to transition in between both of them.
Yeah, there's no feints. There's really no feints. It's just one or the other. And he was doing really well on his feet. And then Lewis caught him with a couple jabs. And he was like, oh, no, and just shot for the takedown immediately. So it made no sense to just continuously not disguise your takedowns. But I guess, listen, I'm a podcaster, not a fighter. So it's easy for me to be sitting on my couch and say, disguise your takedowns, when in actuality, you have a split second to make your mind up.
Yep. And then before we get started on the preview for each fight, just want to let everybody know that once we're done, we're going to be posting this on YouTube and all the socials later tonight. But don't hesitate to comment once you watch this. I'll try and get back to everybody's comments as soon as possible. Then when we do that, I'll be sure to get that to you. But the first fight we have on the card right now, and I got my son here.
I love it.
Breaking into the den. But the first fight we have on the card is a featherweight matchup between Alex Caceres versus Kevin Croom. What's your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, this is a very interesting fight. This whole card it's definitely a fun card. Like, it reminds me of last week's card with the heavyweights in the main event. But this is also a card that can kind of help fighters like Alex Caceres, who is consistently being on the prelims and being the featured prelim. And now he's getting his chance to shine on the main event. So giving him a chance to be more of a household name, the guy you remember from The Ultimate Fighter. But this fight in particular is 100% interesting because they both are super unorthodox. Both of the fighters are coming off a 3-fight win streak. Caceres has been spotlighted a little bit more because he's been in the UFC for quite a longer time than Croom, who only has one fight where it was a quick rear naked choke of Roosevelt Roberts. I think for Caceres, if he's going to win this fight, he needs to stay active and use his unorthodox style to kind of lull Croom in for a big shot. Whereas Croom, if he can push the pace, cut off that shorter octagon that we're going to see at the Apex, and capitalize on some takedowns, mixing them in, he's going to win. I know Croom is a slight underdog, or he's a big underdog. I'm going with Croom, man. I'm going to think he's going to get a submission in this round. I kind of look at him as taking the approach of Chrome Gracie when I think 3 or 4 fights back, Alex Caceres got choked out by Chrome Gracie. I think that's going to happen with Kevin Croom.
Yeah, I agree with you. And sorry, everybody, for the distraction. I got my audience right there on the outside cheering me on this podcast. But uh, we got Kevin Kroom, who's known as the Hard Hillbilly. He's 3-0 in his last 4 fights after a win was stripped for testing positive for marijuana. He fights out of Glory MMA. That fight that he got tested positive for was his debut in the UFC, and he fought at lightweight and then decided to move back down because he felt like it was going to be a better fit for him at the lighter weight. He has 10 wins by submission and 6 by knockout, which is a 76% finish rate for his career, which is very good. You want to be able to finish guys in different ways, and he's been able to do that. Both fighters are technicians on the ground, but Kroom is superior working there and will likely rush the fight being pushed to that spot. Whereas we got his opponent, Alex Caceres, known as Bruce Leroy. What a nickname that is. He has stepped his game up in his last 2 years, going 3-0 in that span with the first round submission of Austin Springer in August. He was actually supposed to fight Kroom there, but Kroom wasn't able to do that fight, and then wound up fighting a month later against his opponent at that time. He takes almost every fight that's offered to him. He never says no. He's the fighter that you want. He'll always say yes to a fight, no matter who it is, because he wants to make money, make a name for himself. He's basically the guy that in that division, he's going to beat everybody below him. But once he gets to the gatekeeper, that's when he starts to struggle. He can never get past that point to get ranked. And he's looking to now that he's on a nice winning streak, he's looking to get to that point where he can get ranked and then start getting featured more. For him, he's going to want to get his striking going. Like I said before, they both have a ground game, but he has a lot better striking advantage in this matchup. His striking is fluid, nice, and quick. And in this fight, I think the difference is he's going to want to stand up instead of going to the ground. This is the one fight that he'll want to do that because he'll be able to get off more punches, get ahead in the scorecard instead of getting it to the ground, just like his opponent. His opponent's going to want to try and submit him and then do a ground and pound. He's going to want to stand up, get ahead on the scorecard so that if something like that happens, he at least knows that he'll be able to win by decision. I have Caceres winning by decision for that fact. I think he's gonna get ahead on the scorecard. Kroom's gonna try and do too much of the ground game, get behind, and then all Caceres is gonna do is kind of run away, hit, run. His kicks are really good, and I feel like he has a chance to knock out Kroom because Kroom is gonna have to go into the third round and do something spectacular because I think he's going to go down two rounds to none. So I could see Caceres winning by third round knockout, just catching Kroom, looking for a submission or like a last second knockout. But I feel like it's going to go to this decision where I have Caceres winning it.
Don't discount that.
Yeah.
Just because Kroom has 10 submission wins, he's not lethal on his feet. He's called the hard-hitting hillbilly for a reason, right? His hands are dynamite. If you go back to that Roosevelt Roberts fight, even though he tested positive because he smoked a little weed, he caught Roberts clean on the jaw, dropped him, and that's what led to the rear naked choke. Yeah. So he kind of reminds me of like Brian Kelleher a little bit, where he doesn't care where the fight goes. He's just happy to be in the fight. And Caceres, you were talking about getting to like the gatekeepers. For a while, Caceres has been a gatekeeper. He's been around for a real long time. Remember The Ultimate Fighter? He came out dressed like Bruce Lee, and Dana White was like kind of taken back, like, who is this guy? But then he was like, man, this guy is legit. But he's welcomed in, Chase Hooper, who was supposed to be like the next big thing from Dana White's Contender Series, and dominated him, like exposed all of his weaknesses standing up. Same thing with Chrome Gracie. That was a good fight until Chrome took it to the ground, even though it only lasted 1 round. Caceres has a ability to expose weaknesses. With Chrome, I don't know where his weaknesses lie at this point. Maybe it's just smoking weed, and that might be his only weakness at this point. But they're taking that away, right? They legalized pot in the UFC, so I think I'm still gonna ride with Chrome, hard hitting hillbilly all the way.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good matchup. I just feel like with the Kroom is just breaking into the UFC, and Caceres has been in there for a few years, so I feel like the experience in this fight is gonna make a whole difference effect wise for him, and I think he's gonna come in with a better game plan.
Yeah, well, Kroom's got a good coach too. You know, we were talking a little before the show. James Krause is, whether it's him in the octagon or anyone else, he is coaching winners. So I don't see any difference with Kroom.
Yep, but I definitely tell you this is going to be a really good matchup. And for the first fight on the 6-fight card, I'm not gonna sleep on it. Either gonna win, but if I had to just pick one right now, I got Alex Caceres, and then you got Kevin Kroom.
That might decide our weekend.
Yep. But moving on to the next matchup, we got a strawweight matchup between Angela Hill versus Ashley Yoder, which is actually a rematch of a Ultimate Fighter finale matchup where we saw Angela Hill beat Ashley Yoder by unanimous decision. How do you see this one going?
Honestly, I see it going the exact same way. I think Yoder's been developing more of her game. Her ground game's good. She trains with Dan Henderson. Angie Hill has been fighting. Like 2020 was her year. We heard, Kazmat and what's his name, Kevin Holland, all these guys fighting multiple times in 2020, whereas Angie Hill did the same thing. However, she becomes victim of point fighting and gets on the wrong side of the point fighting when it goes to the decision. Her last two against Karate Hottie and Claudia Gadela have both been split losses, in which I think she won both those fights. So honestly, I mean, she should be 5-0 her last 5 fights, but the judges don't see it that way. I'm going with Hill by decision, but she needs to keep it standing. Don't let it get to the ground. Yoder's good on the ground, and she should go for the finish, because if it goes to a decision, it could be 3 split decisions losses in a row because of just good point fighting on the opposite side, and then use kicks to negate takedowns. But if I'm Yoder, I'm taking it right to the ground. Hill's a vet, Yoder's a vet, but I would put my trust in Yoder's ground game, and then mix in dirty boxing in the clinch. Keep establishing yourself as dangerous, so Hill doesn't keep coming in, because Hill's a lethal, dangerous fighter, and Yoder, I don't want to see her go deep with Hill if she's just going to shoot for takedowns. It's going to be a bloody fight if she's going to try and just stand up with her.
Yeah. First off, we got Angela Hill. She's known as Overkill. She's going to look to get out of the loss column with the rematch against Yoder. This will be her 5th fight in 13 months. She's fought a lot this past year.
Yeah.
She started out strong, and then she's lost her last 2 fights against very high competition opponents. Her fighting style is striking, and she uses orthodox stance. She fights out of Alliance MMA Gym. If you know that, it's a really good gym with the fighters to come out of it. Then you got Ashley Yoder, aka Spider Monkey, who just broke a 2-fight skid with a win over Miranda Granger last fight, and rides a 3-3 record into the rematch since they last fought. Her fighting style is BJJ, and she's a grappler as well, and she fights out of Team Quest Gym, and she's a southpaw. If you know me, I love southpaw. So,
are you left-handed?
Yes.
As am I.
Yes.
I knew we were friends for a reason.
Yep. So Yoder's going to want to look to get the fight to the ground to limit the shot she takes from Hill. If she can do that, she'll have a really good chance of winning this, because Hill struggles on the ground, and Yoder's going to keep it down there and apply pressure and tire her out. But when I look at this fight is pretty clean cut to me. I feel like Angela Hill is going to get the striking going early. She's going to have success with it, just like she did in the first fight. She's going to take a lot out of Yoder. She's going to pressure her against the cage, hit her with some elbows, and to me, she's going to win by a second round knockout. I don't think it's going to go to the distance. I feel like she's going to catch her with a nice hook, and she's going to put her to the ground. Angela Hill's just really good with her striking like that, and this is a step down in competition for compared to her last two fights. I believe one of the last two she fought Claudia Gadelha, who's really well, and I think she only lost both of those by decision. So
yeah, they were splits. It was 2 fights ago. It was Claudia Gadelha, and the fight before that was Michelle Waterson.
Yes, which was the co-main event of the Anthony Smith, I think, Glover Teixeira card, I believe it was. I would have to look at it again, but I know it was the co-main event of the fight card. So she had a prominent spot on the card, and then she did pretty well against some tough competition. So she's looking to break back into that top 10 and then face that competition again to get some revenge. And I see her taking this one. The only chance Yoder has is if she could get it to the ground and somehow apply a submission to her. Like, I know it's the cliche, the only way a grappler can win by submission, but when she doesn't have a really good striking game, it's going to be hard for her to win anywhere else. Yeah. Because she focuses so much on her grappling and the BJJ, unless she can use the grappling to get some takedowns and rack up on that, and then do damage on the ground, then she has a better chance.
Yeah, Yoder's been implementing more kicks and elbows into her game, and a lot of it in the clinch. Like the elbows are like spinning elbows coming out of the clinch. She's slowly building up her repertoire of attacks, but she is, like you said, she's a BJJ practitioner for a reason. She's lethal down there, and she wants to keep it down there.
Yeah, which I'm looking forward to see if she can use those added repetitions to her game in this fight. Because if she can, it'll help her out. Like throwing elbows and knees and everything is always a good thing to have, because you can never know what happens. Just ask Landwehr. Like for some reason, he got hit with a knee and he was done. Like I thought he was going to win that fight. He was doing good, and then he got hit with the shocking knee once again, and then it dropped him. So if she could do something like that and get Angela Hill stunned, she might be able to take her off her game and then get something going. But for right now, I got a second round knockout by Angela Hill.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that.
No. For the third fight on the card, which is actually a postponed fight that was supposed to happen last month, we got a bantamweight matchup between Pedro Munoz versus Jimmy Rivera, which, just like the last fight, is a rematch from a couple of years ago where we saw Jimmy Rivera pull out a close decision over Pedro Munoz. How do you feel about this fight?
Yeah, they last fought 2015. He got, like you said, Rivera got a split. They're on the opposite side of the spectrum. Pedro's coming off a 2 straight loss fight, last 2 fights.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Rivera's on a 1-fight win streak. But I think I'm actually taking Pedro Munoz in this one because I think he's hungry. I think those last 2 fights against Frankie Edgar and Aljamain Sterling have really just humbled him and said, like, listen, we got to get back to when we were fighting and knocking out Cody Garbrandt, when we were beating Brian Caraway, when we were beating Brett Johns. We have to get back to that. So I think he's going to keep the same game plan with Jimmy as he did with Cody. And he can use like the tape from when he fought Jimmy previously. Vice versa, Jimmy can use the tape of when he fought Pedro. But it's been 5-6 years since then. I think what Jimmy should do is point fight at this point. A lot of his fights have gone the distance. Out of the last 5, 4 of them have been unanimous decisions, whether wins or losses. The only one that's been a knockout or a submission was against Marlon Moraes, where he got knocked out in the first round. Yeah. I think if Jimmy can utilize calf kicks, utilize his Muay Thai mix in some takedowns, he'll get the win. But I'm actually going to go with Pedro on this one. He wants to get back to the top and compete for gold.
Yeah, and then one quick note to just remember, in Munoz's last fight, he did a 5-round fight against Frankie Edgar, so it wasn't the 3-round fight that they're going to do now. So the fact that he was able to do a 5-round fight and then he still had some gas in the tank, we're well for him now, because he's been able to fight all these fights ever since their last matchup 4 or 5 years ago. And for one thing, I feel like he hasn't gotten to his bread and butter the last few years, which has been his wrestling game.
Yeah.
He hasn't used it, and he's been able to be like 500 in that span. Like, he still was able to compete against Edgar. He was still able to compete against Cody Garbrandt.
He beat him.
Yeah, and he didn't even use his bread and butter. So, but I think this is the perfect time for him to get back into the wrestling game, like he needs to get back on track. Going into this breakdown, we got Pedro Munoz. He's an orthodox striker and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappler out of American Top Team, which of course they're known for the wrestling. The last 3 fights, he knocked out Garbrandt and lost to Sterling and Edgar. So the 2 losses that he had were to top talent. Sterling's fighting for the belt, and then Edgar just lost to Sandhagen in a matchup that probably would have been the deciding factor of who's going to get the next shot. He's going to want to take this fight to the ground. That's his number one thing. That's like his saving grace. Get out, Jeffrey is taking the takedowns. He's always successful with them because of his background in wrestling. Whereas Jimmy Rivera is an orthodox striker fighting out of Team Tiger Schulman. He's 1-2 in his last 2 fights, with a victory over Cody Stamann and losses to Sterling and Jan. So his 2 losses are to the guys that are fighting for the belt. So they both have lost to Sterling in their last 2 fights. So, which is the number 1 contender. He's going to want to stand and trade shots and get started early. He wants to get ahead on the scorecard, because he knows in the back of his head that Pedro Munoz is going to want to get the ground game going. He's going to want to go for the takedown and keep the fight to the ground, because that's always going to be advantage to Munoz. Whereas if they're standing up, Munoz is really good standing up, but Jimmy Rivera is better, and that's why he's the favorite. And just like you, my decision with this matchup is I have Munoz by decision. He's going to get back into the wrestling. He's going to get a takedown here and there. He's going to get the ground and pound going. He's going to get those elbows shiny and ready for connecting to the dome of Jimmy Rivera. And he's going to get him tired. He's going to keep him down. You're going to basically see what happened last week with Kunitskaya and Vieira, but the difference is he's going to be able to strike on top. He's not going to just lay there, because I think that's what happens with those team elevation fighters. They try and just lay on you, and then they don't do the transition. But he's on the American Top Team, so they know about transitioning and then moving around and making things hard for the opponent. So if he can get that going, I think he's the favorite to win this by decision. But if he doesn't, and he's too stubborn to go for that, and he wants to stand up for Rivera, I have Rivera win by decision, because Munoz has a good chin, and he's able to take the opponent's best shot and then roll with it. But he always slows down because he goes away from his game plan. I don't know why these fighters do it where they're too stubborn. They stick with what they want to do because they want to beat the opponent by their own game.
Yeah,
it's like this mind game that they do with themselves.
Because well, it's tough. You got a bunch of people screaming at you from all different directions. Yeah. You got your coaches yelling one thing, and that when you're in there and you're realizing that one thing may not work, and you can't relay back to them and say, like, listen, the takedown's not there, the takedown's not there. So you kind of have to it's choose your own adventure out there. On the other side, you have your opponent's coaches, corners yelling at him, and you're trying to decipher what they're saying. So it takes you out of there. With this fight, I'm actually surprised it wasn't a pick 'em.
Me too. I think just the fact that they fought before and Rivera won, and then they're both kind of 1-2 in the last 3 fights against good opponents.
Yeah.
I just think that Rivera just had 2 harder losses. They both have the similar one in Sterling, but you got Jan over Edgar, so I think that's why they probably favor Jimmy Rivera just a little bit over, because it's close enough to pick them, but not to the point where it's 50-50. They get the slight edge just because of the head-to-head matchup before.
Yeah, I don't remember in the last few fights Jimmy Rivera has been a favorite. I think he was the underdog against Stamen. So maybe the last 3 he was underdog.
I remember when they fought, they were neck and neck in the rankings. So
yeah, he dominated Stamen.
Oh yeah, he dominated him, and then he went up and then got beat twice. So he's looking to get back into that top 5 spot. Yeah, because I believe they're 6 and 7.
Yeah, you kind of forget. Yeah, you kind of forget how good Jimmy Rivera was back. I'm not saying he's bad now, but like his win streak was phenomenal. It was like Thomas. It was more of like Jose Aldo's win streak, where he was just continuously winning. And Thomas Almeida, they all had these win streaks, and then along comes time and younger opponents, and they get the best of you. Yeah,
but this is what happens when you break the top 5. You're going to face tough opponents, and then unless you're ready for it, you're going to lose, and then you get pushed back, and then you got to make your way on that win streak to get back into that top 5, because you want to have the chance. So this is both of their chances to push back into that top 5 again, and then get that one step closer to that title shot.
Would you like the winner to get Frankie?
No, because I think Frankie is out of it now. I think he was I think he was 5, because he was 5, and I think Sandhagen was like 2 or 3, and then he lost. So now he's 1-2 in his past 2 fights. He's 1-1 in the division. He beat Munoz slightly, and then got just destroyed by Sandhagen in the first minute. So
what's next for these guys? Do you think maybe like Marlon Moraes bounce back fight, both like former contenders trying to get back to the win column?
He's fallen. I think that would be a good matchup for Edgar is more than Moraes, because Edgar's going to be around 6 or 7 now, and Moraes is at 9.
Yeah, so, don't they train together though, or they did?
I think they did, but not anymore.
Moraes was a Tom's River guy, right?
Yeah. Well, Edgar is too.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think he was a Tom's River guy. Maybe he's down with ATT.
Yeah. But I think the winner, this is going to be tough, because because you also got, TJ Dillashaw, who's coming back. You got to remember that. So he's going to have a tune-up fight. And I think it's either going to be the winner of, I think they basically already said that the winner of Jan Sterling is going to fight Sandhagen.
I mean, that's the fight to make, honestly.
Yeah, but unless Sterling wins by a close decision, in that case, I think they run it back. Then I think they're going to do Dillashaw and Sandhagen, so Sandhagen's not sitting there, because you're going to have Dillashaw do a fight to get back to that title shot.
Well, I mean, you would hope so.
Yeah.
But you got John Jones getting a heavyweight shot right after, Stipe and Francis. So it's all relative at this point.
Yeah, but if you remember when he came back from a couple of years, he had to win a fight just to get that title shot at Cormier again. So
maybe it's against Cody.
Well, Cody is supposed to fight, that they've been talking about Cody versus Aldo.
Yeah.
They want to put that. So I could see a thing where the winner of this maybe fights Dillashaw. Like the winner of this gets into the top 5, and then with the log jam, it's either that or it's going to be the loser of Jan Sterling fights Dillashaw, then the winner fights Sandhagen, and then you just have one of these guys wait. So,
we'll see.
Yeah, but it's going to be a great matchup. But moving on to the 4th fight on this fight card, which this one is going to be one of my favorite matchups. We got wrong one. We got Montana De La Rosa against Mayra Breno Silva. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I've seen both of these women fight, and they're both very good. De La Rosa has 3-2 of her last 5, coming off a loss against Viviane Aruja, and Buena Silva is 4-1 last 5, and is just pulling out like ninja chokes and arm bars out the wazoo. I'm thinking I'm going to go with the favorite. I'm going to go with Mayra Buena Silva via second round submission because how good she is on the ground and how she's going to be able to maintain top control. If we were going to just keep it standing, I think that De La Rosa has the edge, but it goes down to the top control and ground game. I think it's going to be Buena Silva. So I'm going her. I'm going to go rear naked choke round 2.
See, this one, like the more I did like the research on this, the more that I loved like reading about this, and I'm excited for this matchup, mainly for Mayra Breno Silva with all of her background. But first, I'm going to talk about Montana De La Rosa. She fights out of Team Elevation Gym and has an orthodox stance. She is a BJJ grappler and is heavy on the takedown game. Looks to get her opponent down by takedown and wear them out so she can lock in one of the many submissions that she does. She's content with the takedown, but just look at Curtis Blades, basically, with Team Elevation. Most of the people will take you down, and they just want to sit on you or move between side control and full control. They want to control you on the ground and then do majority of the work on there. She's prone to losing by decision if fight stands up too long, but she does have a high IQ. She's very smart in the octagon, but I feel like she's going to have a tough time in this because of her opponent, Mayra Breno Silva. She's an orthodox fighter and trains out of Shoot Box Gym. What I like about her is she trains with 2 different coaches. She trains with Diego Lima, and she trains with Team Cyborg. And everybody knows about Team Cyborg. Her fighting style is striking and BJJ grappler, which is why she trains with 2 different groups. She's won by all 3 ways and is building her game up to be a very vast overall matchup. She's a problem standing up, and then she's a problem on the ground. And that's why she has one of the best like mixed games in that division. I think she's going to be one of the futures of it because of the 2 different contrasted styles from Lima and Cyborg. Of course, with Lima, you're going to get the grappling, and then Cyborg, you're going to get the striking game. She's going to be a problem everywhere, and the way I see is first round knockout.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
like I don't think it's going to be close. She's going to go in. She's going to get a takedown very quickly. De La Rosa is going to get up, and then she's just going to pop her. Just pop her, because she's going to wear out De La Rosa very quickly, because she can go transition from one game to another very quickly because she trains both ways. Yeah. It's not like she's one way dominantly to the other. She trains both simultaneously, and that's been to her advantage. She could beat you on the ground, and she could beat you standing up, and she's been known to knock people out. So
yeah, Buena Silva kind of reminds me of someone who is comfortable from bottom.
Yes,
like doesn't mind weathering the storm. Like one of her wins is a submission over one of your former guests, Jillian Robertson, who is deadly on the ground, like one of the best grapplers in that division, and she submitted her with ease. You're talking about Montana De La Rosa, who is good on the ground as well and thrives down there, but you're going up against a whole nother beast when you go to Buena Silva, who will welcome being on bottom and can get you from bottom.
And even if De Rosa was able to get her down, she's comfortable on her back. She'll strike De La Rosa while on her back, and then she'll be able to transition out of that and get out, and then go back to the standing game. It doesn't matter which one she's on; she's comfortable in both stances. So she's going to have the big advantage in this one. I'm surprised she's only a minus 125 favorite. I would think she'd be like a minus 200 favorite with the background she has and the coaching compared to De La Rosa. But I guess because Team Elevation is a popular gym now that they give her some props for that. But it's going to be hard for her to go for the takedown, knowing that when she takes Brenna Silva down, Brenna Silva is still going to be a favorable matchup to contrast against that takedown game.
Yeah, this is the closest fight, I believe, on the entire card. The negative 125 for Buena Silva. That's the closest as you're going to get. And you're right. It's kind of odd that the odds makers know a lot more than what we're talking about, because you have someone who Buena Silva's 4-1 last 5 with, she's fighting a higher level of competition, whereas Montana De La Rosa's 3-2, but coming off of a loss, and she's still the favorite of this fight. It's there's something there that we're not missing. So watch us both be wrong, and Montana just KOs her like first 5 minutes with an elbow, or first 5 seconds with an elbow or something.
Yep,
spinning back fist.
If they do that, I won't make it to the co-main event. So because that's my definite right there. Like I'd put money on that. That's my lock of the night is Brenna Silva.
Okay.
Yeah, compared to the rest of them. But to move on to our co-main event, which is actually one of the most exciting fights to me on the card, we got a matchup between. Just made this mistake again. We got the matchup between Krylov and Anklev. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, this was a tough one. This is early candidate for fight of the night for me. Well, late candidate because it's the main event. But this is going to be my fight of the night. Because these two guys are just ready for a war. The line is telling me Anklev 100%. But I want to see what he can do to fighters that aren't named Ian Cutelaba. His last 2 fights, round 1 knockouts. It was like Groundhog's Day. You can take like the same thing. Magomed's 5-0 last 5. Nikita is 3-2 last 5 with a big win over Johnny Walker. He lost to Glover Teixeira. Submission against OSP, which for fight fans, that's huge for taking rear naked choke on OSP. And then he lost to the champ with Jan Blachowicz. He's been fighting a streamline of studs, where Magomed has been fighting on the regional scene. He's been, he's got Ian Kulaba twice, which again, same result. I'm going Anklev with the KO. I'm going to say like round 1. Late round 1 KO. He's just, I think he's a better fighter in my mind at this point. But I do like Krylov a lot.
Yeah, there's a reason why Anklev is a -334 favorite.
Yeah, man. That Sambo background, that he's lethal with his hands. He's a monster.
And let's not forget that even though he hasn't far as active as Krylov, most of that's because the rematch against Ian Kutuba was rescheduled 4 times.
Yeah, it took like a year to fight.
Yeah, they took a year to get that fight going, and then he won it very quickly after the questionable decision the first fight. So he basically showed off even better than he did in the first fight. Yeah. But Anklev is a well-rounded orthodox fighter who fights out of Mat fight team. I hope I didn't butcher that. He's a master in Sambo, which is really important to remember in this matchup. And he'll look to pressure forward to get the opponent to the mat. As you know, with Habib, with Sambo, the main thing with that is to pressure your opponent forward to make them fall backwards and make a mistake. So it's easier for you to get the takedown. It's a form of takedown where you use the least amount of energy as possible. You use their energy against them. That's basically what Sambo is. Whereas Krylov is an orthodox striker who fights out Industrial's YK Promotions gym. He has a black belt. Majority of the wins are by submission with no KOs, which is weird for a guy like Krylov. He's had over 20 fights. The way I see this going is I have Anklev by 3rd round knockout. Like I was floating on whether or not that he would do it in the first round, but Krylov is a guy that's able to hang around in the fight. His chin is pretty well. I think what Anklev's going to do is he's going to go for the Sambo early, He's going to take him down, a la Habib style. He's going to wear him down, and then when he's worn down by the third round, he's going to be able to finish him in the third round. He's going to have nothing left, and then it's going to be a third round stoppage.
Wouldn't you be worried about if you were Magomed? Wouldn't you be worried about Krylov's ground defense?
I would, but then with how Sambo is you're using their
you're using their momentum, their
momentum against them, so
suck them out. Yeah,
suck him out, and he's going to change stance. He's not going to just stay on top of him. He's going to go in the half guard. He's going to go in the four guard. It's going to try and trick him into getting on his back because to lock him in a submission. That's the Angelov's like hidden gem. There is his submission game.
Yeah, I'm curious to see this because I thought Angelov was going to keep it standing because of how good Krylov is on the ground. You said there's no KO wins, right? It's a lot of submissions. But, I think Magomed has a lot of KO wins lately. At least. I think he's going to keep it standing just to not even like, I think it's just going to be a quick fight.
Yeah, like that is a really big possibility with how his striking is. But I just see it as you see all those guys, they like to use the Sambo. It's even with the striking, like you get the striking going, and then when you catch them going backwards, they're going to go for the takedown because they're going to use their momentum against them because you don't have to use any because they're already moving backwards already.
Yeah.
And then he might use that to his advantage to do that and then pop him while he's moving backwards. Or he might go for the takedown. You don't know. It depends on the situation.
Yeah, he's like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
He's like from any direction.
Yeah, and with how he is now, this is a fight to break him into the top 10, I believe. I think he's right outside, or he's right at 10, whereas Krylov is, I know he's in the top 10. I'm not sure if he's 9 or 10.
Yeah.
But he's looking to break into the top 10 because that light heavyweight division's wide open right now, especially if Adesanya beats Janhovic. Then it opens up pretty big. You got Santos, who I believe is fighting Rakic next month.
It's a big fight, huge fight.
So you got the matchups that are happening. I could see something where the winner of this fight gets like a 5 or 6 ranked matchup next.
There's a lot of big fights coming out of like this is between this and featherweight, they have the most fights going on currently. Jimmy Crute's fighting Anthony Smith. That's like there's a bunch of hungry lions that are trying to get rid of these gatekeepers or older fighters. I think
Teixeira's still waiting. I think he's still waiting.
Yeah, if I was Glover, I would just stay there and wait until Izzy and Jan have their fight and then take the winner of that.
Yeah, but the thing that could throw a wrench into this, and it's like a 10% chance, but I feel like if Adesanya were to win dominantly in the first round and call out John Jones, I think there's a 10% chance that Jones would actually stay in the light heavyweight.
Yeah,
and fight that. But then I just saw a picture of him being in built heavyweight style, like he put on mass.
He's big now. Yeah, he's like big. I think he was saying he was walking around like 260.
Yeah,
that's a big boy.
So it's like the light heavyweight division is wide open.
Yeah, and there's a lot of older fighters at the top.
Yeah, but like I would have to look at it.
Well, you have Glover, right? You have Thiago Santos, Jimmy Crute, Anthony Lionheart Smith. These guys that we're talking about right now, Andre Rakic. There's a bunch of. Okay, I was gonna say Corey Anderson, but he's gone.
It's right here. We got Glover Teixeira is actually the number 1 ranked guy. Then you got Santos, Dominic Reyes, who is fighting number 5 Proxaca. Then you got Rakic is fighting Santos. That's the 2-4. Anthony Smith is fighting Crute, which is the 6-12. I could see the winner of this because this is the 8-11 matchup. So I could see If Krylov wins, I could see him fighting Dominic, the winner of Dominic Reyes and Praxaka, because there's no one ready to fight. You're not going to have him go all the way up to fight Glover Teixeira.
No.
That'd be too far up. But if Anklov were to win, I could see him fighting Ozdemir, who's ranked number 7.
Keep forgetting he's still fighting.
Yeah, because
Haven't
he's
seen
the
him in a
only
while.
him and Johnny Walker are the only ones in that top 10 who are not active. And I think Johnny Walker just got a fight booked.
Yeah.
Against I think he might be fighting Paul Craig. I would have to look into it. So he's booked already. So it's like some of this is waiting and seeing, because they booked so much in this 2-3 month span that you kind of have to wait to see what happens as the weeks go on to see unfold. Just like in heavyweight, you got every heavyweight fighting in the next 2-3 weeks in the top 10. So a lot of it's based on who's going to win now.
Yeah, it's good that they're doing that, because you get even the champs are fighting, so they'll all be ready around the same time.
Yes,
you know, Derek Lewis, Curtis Blades, these two guys that are fighting main event, and then Stipe and Francis are all fighting within 3 weeks of each other, which is great.
This kind of reminds me of like the Bellator Grand Prix, but like an unofficial, because you got everybody fighting, but in a different style. Like I want to see this rather than 2 guys are fighting and then 2 months later 2 more in the division. I like to see everybody active. That way it moves the division faster.
Yeah,
like that heavyweight is finally getting this log jam out, and we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah,
but they've been stagnant for a while, and I think this is the perfect time to fix it. But to go into the last fight of the fight card, which is I'm most excited for, we got a heavyweight matchup between Jairzinho Rozenstruik against Ciryl Gane. How do you see this going?
This is the hardest fight for me to pick, because these guys, any fight in heavyweight is like you could flip a coin and the winner's going to be decided. Rozenstruik 11-1, big wins over Junior Albini, Andrei Arlovsky, Overeem, which was like that last second kind of push, and then the big win over JDS. He lost to Francis, got knocked out against Francis, and then Ciryl Gane 7-0, obviously 5-0 his last 5 big wins over Junior Dos Santos, Tanner Bozer, and then a couple other guys. The thing about this fight is it's kind of, I feel the same way when I was going into last week with Blades and Lewis. Like, there's a game plan, right? You see there's a wrestler, there's a striker. This one, you have a guy who is known primarily for striking with Rozenstruik, and then you have Gane, who can take it to the ground. You got a traditional heavyweight-looking fighter versus an action figure. At the end of the day, I'm going to go with Ciryl Gane, the favorite, by submission.
Ooh.
Because if you go back his last 5, he's got his against Rafael Pascal is a round 1 triangle, and then Dontal Mays round 3 heel hook. So I'm gonna go sub. I'm gonna go submission for Gane.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup. Rozenstruik has fought a main event fight when he did Overeem, when he caught him in the last second of the last round of the main event, and because he was losing that fight like 4 rounds to none, and then he was able to just catch him because Overeem has that glass chin, but he was able to do that. He showed composure in that 5-round fight. He's a sneaky guy with his gas tank. He's big, but he can last the whole 5 rounds.
He's fast.
Yeah.
So fast.
Especially with his hands. But you got Rozenstruik, who's an orthodox fighter who trains out American Top Team Biggie Boy.
Love it. I love it.
Yes. He has a kickboxing background, and he has won 10 of 11 fights by KO. So he's the guy. He reminds me of Derek Lewis, where no matter what's happening, if he catches you with that one punch, he'll knock you out.
Yeah, who did he fight recently? Was it Arlovsky, where he literally just tapped him and he crumbled?
Yes.
Like he's got tap power. Like he doesn't have to hit you hard.
Yep, and just like I said, he reminds me of Derek Lewis. But then, of course, he did have that happen to him when he fought Francis Ngannou. That's his only loss. He lost in 20 seconds. But we all know how Ngannou is. He hits you, unless you're Derek Lewis, you're dropping down because of how hard he punches. He's probably the one guy that Rozenstruik fears just because it's him fighting himself, but with more explosiveness.
Yeah, and height too. How tall is Rozenstruik? He's like 6'2", 6'3", maybe.
He's 6'4".
Oh, 6'4". Wow.
Both these fighters are 6'4", actually.
Okay. Oh, I'm looking right at the graphic. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Then you got Ciryl Gane. He's an Orthodox striker trained now of MMA Factory. He has a high-profile wrestling and Muay Thai background, and he only has 7 fights. He's considered one of the most well-rounded prospects in the heavyweight division in recent memory. His versatility vastly higher than Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik just has the power game on his. He can catch you with one shot and beat you. And Rozenstruik relies on the finishes. He's won 10 out of 11, of course. Yeah, Gane lands more strikes per minute, has a great striking defense. He can defend the strikes well. So he's going to look to defend those power shots and then counter them with his own striking. They might not be the power, but he's going to land those significant strikes to the body or to the head. And I could see him mixing some kicks into it. He's going to want to wear down Rozenstruik so he's not able to hit him with the 100% pure power. He's going to want to look to get him to the point to where maybe he's at 60. That 60 is still good, but at least when he gets hit, if he gets caught by like a shot that he doesn't see, it won't be as effective because he's going to wear down Rozenstruik to the point to where it's not going to be that 100% shot. The way I see this fight going is I see Gane either get this to the ground early and often, or he's going to just go with the movement game. He has really good movement, and he's going to move like I say it's for guys like this. It's the Dominic Reyes game plan when he went against Jones. You stay to the sides so you don't get into the vision of that punch. It's going to be on the opposite side to stay as far away from it as possible, and then he's going to move around, take his shots, and then he's going to go for the takedown. Get him a little bit tired, drain some of his energy, and I could see this going to the decision. I actually have Gane by decision victory with this because I don't know how well Ciryl Gane's knockout power is. Like we saw him hit Junior Dos Santos he beat him by KO, but that was like a shot that he hit him in the back of the head more so. Whereas anybody gets hit in the back of the head, they're gonna fall. But Junior Dos Santos is on his way down, whereas Rozenstruik's on his way up. So unless he catches Rozenstruik well, I don't see him knocking him out. But then I can see him wearing him down. That's why he is even though he's ranked lower than Rozenstruik, he's the minus 275 favorite because he has more to his game than Rozenstruik. Just like Blades has more to his game than Lewis, but Blades wasn't able to transition from one stance to another. It wasn't able to transition from the wrestling game to the stand-up game, whereas Gane's a lot better with doing that than Blades is. He's just not as polished with the wrestling as Blades is because Blades trains a certain way at Elevation, whereas Gane trains a certain way at MMA Factory. But I have Gane by decision. I think he's going to wear him out. He's going to get that win, stay undefeated, and then he's going to possibly fight Derek Lewis because Derek Lewis is going to need to take another fight while he waits for the never-ending logjam after this Stipe Ngannou fight, where then the winner of that faces Jones.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you feed the winner of this to Derek Lewis, or if if Jairzinho wins, does he go against Derek Lewis?
Yeah.
And if Gane wins, he goes against Volkov. Just because of rankings, you know?
Yeah, you kind of, if you're Derek Lewis, you kind of have to take this fight. I mean, you kind of have to take another fight because he's going to be waiting too long. You got this fight at the latest. You might not see the Jones against the winner fight until October, November, unless it's Stipe. If Stipe wins, it could be longer because of his part-time schedule. Yeah, being a firefighter, he only wants to fight like once every 6 months, once every year. So it could be longer than that. Then at that point, if that happens, then you're going on a year waiting for the matchup. You're not going to want to wait a year. You're going to want to stay fresh. Even though he has a chance of losing his number one contender spot, he wants to stay active. You don't want to. The thing in UFC is you never want to stay stagnant, because when you stay stagnant, you lose some of that confidence, and you lose some of that win streak that you have built. That adrenaline, like you get just complacent and kind of, I don't want to say lazy, but you're not as good because you didn't stay active. I think that's part of the reason why Cerrone was so successful, other than taking too many fights, was he always fought all the time. So even when he lost, he was able to get back on a winning streak.
Yeah,
with taking a fight so soon. Just like Angela Hill, she's fought 5 times. She started out hot and went cold, and now she's looking to go hot again because she wants to get on that win streak. She doesn't want to wait. She wants to keep going.
If I were Derek Lewis, which I know I'm not, but the fight that I would have to take would be something that would propel me to solid number one contender. I wouldn't want to take an in-between fight. It's kind of like because like if you're number 3 or whatever Derek Lewis is, because I know he beat number 2. Whatever he's ranked, if you take 6 or 7, you lose your number one contendership spot. You now have to climb that ladder again, go through killers. It's what Joanne Calderwood did when Valentina got hurt. She took the fight against Jennifer Maia. She loses to Jennifer Maia. She wins her next fight, and Dana White's like, I don't know if you've done anything special enough to get to the top. Yeah. So she's just you have to kind of climb that ladder again of killers.
Yeah, but luckily for Derek Lewis, is whoever wins this fight is going to be in the top 3. So it's going to be worthy. It's still going to be a top 3 matchup because you're going to have Jones, who isn't even in the rankings right now. Essentially, he's going to be the number one contender. And then you're just going to have Ngannou and Stipe up there in the championship spot. Yeah. So essentially, it's going to be a parallel fight for him, where it's going to be like a 2 versus 3 matchup.
Hope so.
Because right now, I think Gane 6 and Rozenstruik's actually, I think 3.
He is 3, yeah.
He's 3. So the winner's going to bump up to that spot. So at least if he's forced to fight, it's not going to be like him fighting number 6, 7, or 8. He's going to fight number 3.
Yeah. Would you give the loser blades? So 2 guys coming off a loss and make them fight for a win?
The way I have it right now is I got Jones fighting the winner of Stipe and Ngannou. Say Ngannou wins. Okay. You'll be having Ngannou versus Jones. If you wait so long, say Stipe retires, that makes it a lot easier. Then you would just have Derek Lewis against Gane Rozenstruik winner while he waits. But if Stipe doesn't retire and he wants to fight again, then you would have Derek Lewis against Stipe, which he hasn't fought him yet.
Yeah.
Because he beat Ngannou, and then he hasn't fought Stipe yet. So it would be a good matchup there. And then you just have, I guess you would have blades against the winner of this, Gane Rozenstruik, because they would have to wait. And then the loser would just
fight Volkov.
Fight Volkov, fight Volkov.
There we go.
You could have like a Gane Volkov or a Rozenstruik Volkov, which would be a really good fight. It's like a co-main event fight.
Yeah,
because Volkov is going to want to fight because of beating Overeem. So I think Volkov is going to be at like that 5 spot.
Yeah.
But it all depends on how the championship matchup goes and if Stipe retires or not. If he retires, it's going to make everything much easier.
Yeah,
I don't want him to
absolutely.
retire, but it makes the matchups, future matchups, easier to book.
Yeah, I agree.
Because then you're not going to have to worry about him only wanting to fight one time a year. All those guys are going to want to fight several times a year. They want to stay active. Because the only reason he does that is because he's a firefighter right now in COVID. So he wants to fight one time a year so he can spend time at his other job compared to the other guys who are full-time.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of possibilities there. But in this matchup, I got Gane.
Okay. Me too.
But do you have anything else before we wrap this up about this fight card?
Oh, I hope all the fights happen and they don't get pulled by COVID. I know this card was already ravaged by COVID before it even was official. So I hope that happens. I hope everybody has fun, and I hope they all walk away without injuries and we get good fights.
Yep. And then before you get going, what's next with Cage by IQ? We got right now as we're recording tonight, I have an interview with UFC featherweight Derek Minner, who just beat Charles Russa on UFC Vegas 19. So check that out tonight at 6:00. Today's Thursday, February 25th. Check it out, 6:00 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook at Cage by IQ. And then next week, we will be on Monday, we will be reviewing this UFC Fight Night card, Monday at 8:30. And then check out next Thursday, as we will be doing a collaboration with the other MMA podcast here on Sportsbox, where the 4 or 5 of us will be previewing UFC 259 Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz, where there will be 3 title fights on the card, and this is going to be a barnstormer of a pay-per-view. Do you have any takes on this pay-per-view before we get going?
Oh, geez. It's definitely going to be a barnstormer, to steal your word. I'm looking at Izzy to win, Sterling to win, and Nunez to retain.
Sounds good. I'm going to hold my picks for next week. But thanks for coming on again.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be having you on in a couple of weeks. As usual, we usually do these bonus pre-recorded episodes on the week of a fight night card. So check Jim back up on Cage by IQ in a couple of weeks. Follow him at The Active Geek, his podcast that he releases content every Wednesday, and then every Saturday he does a review of WandaVision, which is called Wanda Watch. And then once that ends, check out his new Saturday podcast where they review the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show that premieres, I believe it's March 19th, I believe it is.
Yeah, it's a couple weeks after Wanda.
A couple weeks,
a week after, a week or so.
So once that premieres, they'll be doing the review of every episode of that show every Saturday morning, and they usually release, I think, on Sundays.
Yeah, whenever I can edit it, Saturday or Sunday.
Yep. So check out all of his content there at Active Geek. Check us out at Cage by IQ every Monday at 8:30, and then every Thursday whenever there's a fight night card. And then leave us a comment. We'll get back to you as soon as we can and see him. Thanks for tuning in, and have a nice fight week, everybody.
See ya.
Thank you for watching this episode of Cage My IQ on the Sports Box. Please remember to follow us on all of our social media outlets. On Facebook at Sportsbox Show, Twitter at Sportsbox Show, Instagram at The Sportsbox Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And also our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 free points. Thank you for joining us.